Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth Clore, and you may know me from Instagram or Facebook, but this is my very first YouTube race recap, and it is for the Indianapolis Monumental Marathon that I ran over the weekend. Let's get into it. I chose the Indianapolis Monumental Marathon as my fall goal race because it is a fast course with historically good weather. At the age of 47 tomorrow, I believe that I am peaking in my running career right now. So I want to run fast courses to see what kind of lifetime marathon personal best I can achieve. I had run the Indy Monumental Half Marathon twice, setting a PR there in 2019. I ran the marathon in 2017 and had a monumental bunk. I was registered for this race last fall too, but I had to take 4 weeks off of training due to COVID. So I wasn't ready to run that race in time. I knew this course had huge PR potential, and I wanted to get revenge on the 2017 race. This was going to be my year to finally break 3:10. My training cycle went extremely well, and I had set multiple training PRs. My weekly mileage averaged around 65, topping out at 70, with multiple weeks between 65 and 70. Here's some of the workouts that made me believe I was capable of running a 3:10 marathon. So for speed, I did 6x800 in 3:15, 3:12, 3:09, 3:05, 3:03, 3:04 with 400-meter recovery jogs, followed up with 2 really fast 400s. And even though it took me a few reps to get those legs warmed up, I was able to run that 3:03 and that 3:04 800-meter. For lactate threshold, I did 3x5K with 4-minute recovery jogs. My times were 21:41, 21:26, 21:13, and these would all be amazing 5K race times in and of themselves. The fact that I ran 3 of them in a row with only 4 minutes in between gave me so much confidence. As for endurance and marathon pace, I did a 20-miler with 13.1, averaging a 7:06 pace nonstop. That's a 1:33:15 half marathon in training, and that was part of a 20-miler. So the full 20 miles averaged a pace of 7:30. So these were just some of the key workouts. I also ran a 19-miler with 10 at marathon pace. I ran an easy 20-miler, an easy 22-miler, and a lot of other easy long runs that were like 16 to 18 miles. All this time, I did not have any niggles, any aches, any pains, and my body was absorbing the work beautifully. And then I went to Paris. I ran my 20 miles with 13.1 at 7:06 pace on a Friday, and then I flew to Paris the following Sunday evening overnight. It was a work trip. It was not mandatory, but I had been asked to present my company's global marketing strategy to other marketing leaders, and I did not want to turn this opportunity down. I was able to squeeze in 2 runs on this trip, but I also took 3 rest days. This was quite the interruption to my normal flow of training, and my main focus was to avoid getting sick. The last time I traveled internationally, I ended up with COVID, as I said earlier, and I was dreading a repeat of that. I loaded up with all sorts of immune vitamins and Manuka honey and all of that stuff. So I did manage not to get sick, but I was completely thrown out of the rhythm of my training. So I went from 50 days of daily running to 3 days off in a single week and 2 long flights. When I came back, that is when I strained my calf. And from then on, I only ran twice in the remaining 13 days. Both of those runs were about 2 miles each. So when race day arrived, it had been nearly 3 weeks since I was in my normal running routine. I believed that my fitness was still intact, but I don't think my legs were prepared to make the sudden leap from 0 all the way to a marathon. As for my calf rehab, my physical therapist dry needled the calf on the Monday before the race, and that seemed to help with the final bit of healing. I went back to him on Wednesday, and he said that he thought the calf would be fine for the marathon. Let's talk about race weekend. The Sunday before the race, Greg and I decided to cancel our flights and to drive to Indianapolis instead. I wasn't 100% sure that I would even do the race, given my calf was not fully healed by that point. So driving offered more flexibility, and Greg prefers driving to flying, plus a lot of flights were being canceled or delayed with the air traffic control situation. The drive is about 8.5 hours, but we stopped a lot to stretch our legs and to eat, so it took 10.5 hours. I did not do a shakeout run on Saturday because I wanted to allow my calf every possible minute of healing. Instead, we did a good bit of walking around the Expo and to eat lunch and dinner. In retrospect, I think this was probably a mistake. Shakeout runs serve a purpose, which is to keep the legs loose and to prepare them to run. I can't say for sure that doing a shakeout run would have made that much of a difference, but if I had to do over again, I would have not skipped the shakeout run. At the Expo, it was really cool meeting so many runners who recognized me from social media. I purchased a short sleeve shirt, which is this one, and a half zip running top. Part of me is always afraid to buy too much at the Expo in case the race doesn't go well or I don't finish, but I was determined that I was going to have a great day no matter what. So I bought the merch with that mindset. A little bit of a side note, I did once buy a half zip for a marathon that I DNF'd and I never ended up wearing it. As for eating, I like to document my food so I can remember in future races what worked and what didn't. My digestive system behaved itself so nicely, and it's worth detailing my food intake, if you care. Breakfast was pumpkin spiced waffles, a small serving of berries, and an apple cider donut. So good. I had a banana nut muffin for a snack. Lunch was a turkey wrap with lettuce, tomato, and mayo. I had pretzels for an afternoon snack, and then dinner was chicken parm with bread and pasta. I drank about 75 ounces of water, including a packet of Scratch Labs hydration mix. So now it's race day. I woke up at 4 a.m. naturally, and I slept solidly from 8:45 to 1 o'clock in the morning. I was awake until about 1:30 and then asleep again until 4 a.m. I had recently discovered that magnesium glycinate helps with sleep, and I had been taking it all week long. This resulted in high-quality sleep all week, so I felt very well rested going into the race. I had my typical race breakfast of a banana plus almond butter-filled pretzels, along with 18 ounces of water mixed with Scratch Labs hydration. I foam rolled my calves, I used a lacrosse ball to massage my glutes, which helps activate them, and I did some dynamic stretching for my hip flexors. We hung out in the hotel lobby for about 15 minutes where I used the bathroom for the final time, and then I went outside at 7:30 for the 8 a.m. start. I did some light jogging back and forth on one of the side streets, and everything felt great, including my calf. Not even a slight hint of any problems. We then walked to the corral where Greg dropped me off. Greg's plan was to use one of the Pacers bike share bikes to cheer for me at various places along the course. The race website had instructions on exactly how to do this. Greg couldn't be 100% sure that a bike would be available, so his backup plan was to use one of the electric scooters that were located all throughout the city. Once I was inside the corral, my first order of business was to have my UCAN gel. I like to take a UCAN gel about 20 minutes before the start because it is a slow release energy that gradually activates over an expended period of time. Now let's talk about the weather and also my outfit. The weather at the start was 43 degrees and sunny with 4-mile-per-hour winds. Amazing. Throughout the race, the temperature rose to about 53 degrees, but the cloud cover quickly came with it. I would give this a 10 out of 10 on my personal race weather scale. Ideal. That said, I did get warm early in the race before the clouds rolled in, and I poured water over my head to stay cool. If it weren't for the cloud cover, I might have downgraded this to an 8 or a 9, but the clouds really helped. I decided against wearing sunglasses because I knew that the majority of the race would be cloudy. I wore Zensaw calf compression sleeves for added calf support, and I opted for the Nike Alpha Fly because they had worked really well in training. They were horrible for the track 5K that I ran over the summer, but I ran 2 long runs with marathon pace miles in them during training, and they felt great. My favorite, all-time favorite carbon fiber plated shoe is the Adidas Adios Pro 2, but they're now on version 4, which unfortunately does not fit my feet. I'm in between sizes. So I wore a necklace for the first time ever. I recently had this thin, delicate necklace made from small stones in my grandmother's wedding ring. I've seen other runners race in jewelry and I've always admired it, so I figured why not try it. All right, let's get into the race. I wasn't quite sure where to position myself in the corral. I didn't want to get caught up in a large pace group because the course is crowded for the first 8 miles until the half marathon splits off. I also remembered from previous years that there were a lot of sudden turns and potholes, and you really had to be careful where you were stepping. About a mile into the race, I found myself behind the 3:15 pacer. That pacer had gone out way too fast, as pacers tend to do. So I didn't mind being behind that group. I also planned to negative split my way to a 3:10, and I wanted to start at a pace that would yield around 3:15. In a perfect world, I would pace the first 10K at around 7:20 and then gradually speed up to 7:10 or faster by the end. All of my marathon pace workouts had my marathon pace at 7:06 to 7:08, so I felt super conservative starting the race at a 7:20 pace. I relaxed into the race, And I didn't even think about my calf. I focused on making sure that I didn't run too fast and that I didn't trip on a pothole. Admittedly, the road conditions were much better than I had remembered them from previous years. Perhaps they fixed the potholes, or maybe I just remembered it worse than it was. I had read my 2017 blog the day before, and I had stated that I was really frustrated during the first 5 miles with all of the crowding and the road conditions on top of that. Things went much smoother for me during this race. In terms of hydration and nutrition, I carried a 24-ounce bottle of water mixed with Scratch Labs hydration, which has both electrolytes and sugars. I drank from it every 12 to 15 minutes, which allowed me to skip the water stations in the first half of the race. My plan was to take a Morton gel every 40 minutes and then use the Scratch Labs hydration and Honey Stinger chews intermittently, and I had 2 of those chews 20 minutes into the race. Greg had written Elizabeth Clore on my back, which resulted in many runners on the course saying, "I follow you on Instagram," or "I love your content," or "I'm a huge fan," as they passed me. I got to meet so many runners along the way, and it perked me up whenever somebody cheered for me by name. The name on my bib was Zebra, so anyone yelling and cheering for Elizabeth likely knew me from social media. Here are my mile splits. Mile 1, 7:22, Mile 2, 7:28, Mile 3, 7:09, but I think that's not accurate because of the satellites. Mile 4, 7:20, Mile 5, 7:18, Mile 6, 7:17. Now let's get into miles 7 through 13. So my plan was to start easing into the race pace after the first 10K. But instead of doing that, I find myself continuing to run around 7:20. Not the end of the world. I would have been fine holding a 7:20 pace for the first 10 miles of the race if that's what felt right. I still had the 3:15 pace group in my sights, and by my math, they were on target for somewhere in the 3:13s. I seriously need to retire from competitive running so I can be a pacer. I expected the crowd to really thin out when the half marathon runners split off during the 8th mile, but it did not. It wasn't overly crowded, but there were still a lot of runners around me. It was somewhere during the 8th mile when I started to realize that my legs were already starting to tire. I was supposed to be speeding up at this point, but instead I found it difficult to maintain my 7:20 pace. I had to work harder than expected. After having run 37 marathons, I know what the effort level should feel like at mile 8, and you absolutely should still be in control of the pace at that point. It should not feel strained. During the 9th mile, I realized something was wrong. I had executed according to my plan. I had taken my gels and my chews, my hydration mix. I paced it conservatively, but my legs started to feel tight and achy. Specifically, it was my high hamstrings on both legs. Was it from sitting in the car ride for 9 hours 2 days before? I wouldn't think so. I didn't want to do it, but I thought if maybe I stopped for just a few seconds and stretched my hamstrings, maybe I could get some pep back. But no. It did feel good to stretch them, but it did not seem to help matters. It was also my upper calves, the gastroc, that felt tight. I had strained my soleus muscle, which is the lower calf, and that actually felt 100% fine. So I kept running with the realization that I would not be able to speed up, and instead I was being forced to slow down. The immediate urge was to start analyzing the heck out of it, but I quickly shut that down, and I told myself that I didn't need to figure it out, I just needed to deal with it the best that I could. I knew that I would see Greg at mile 11, and I wanted to look strong for him, but I also knew that he would see the 3:15 pace group ahead of me and wonder why I wasn't ahead of them by that point. When I saw him, I smiled and I waved. He said, "Feel good?" as I passed, and then I yelled back, "No." I had to be honest with him. I was not feeling good, but I was going to still try my best. A nearby runner said, "Don't believe it," which is good advice. You can't run a successful race if you are focused on how badly that you feel. And I wasn't focused on it. I was just being honest. I was determined to keep pushing along, even though I had to stop at several points to stretch. Here are my mile splits. Mile 7, 7:17, mile 8, 7:17, mile 9, 8:19, I stopped to stretch, mile 10, 7:30, mile 11, 7:39, mile 12, 8:03, and mile 13, 7:56. All right, halfway done, and my official halfway split was 1:39:36, which is the equivalent of a 3:19 marathon. I had ruled out a sub 3:20 a few miles back, but it was now just a matter of if I could beat my time from 2017. That was my next goal. In 2017, I ran a disappointing 3:43 on a goal of 3:18. If I could set a course PR, that would feel good. Another benefit of my name being written on my back was that I didn't want to be seen walking. I was supposed to inspire people, right? Once, when I was stretching, someone asked me, "Oh no, is it your calf?" And I replied, "No, it's everything else." It's kind of surreal when so many of the runners know your life story. At one point, multiple runners said to me, "Hey, I recognize you." And this led to another runner asking me if I was famous. I told her no, but that I had a lot of social media followers. Miles 12 through 18 were the hardest miles of the race. I had to stop about once each mile to stretch. Greg was cheering for me in the 17th mile, and I stopped and I talked to him for about 30 seconds. I told him that I was having a really hard time, but that I would finish. Miles 16 through 19 were also net uphill. The course is mainly flat, but this section was an exception. I struggled my way through it, keeping a positive mindset throughout. When I reached mile 18, there was an aid station labeled Vaseline, ibuprofen, and sunscreen. I'd never taken painkillers before or during a race, but I knew that ibuprofen was a muscle relaxer and that could potentially help. After all, I had nothing to lose at this point, so might as well try it. The woman at the aid station handed me a cup with 2 ibuprofen and another small cup of water. I swallowed them quickly and I hoped for the best. Shortly after this, a runner came up from behind me and told me that she followed me on Instagram. Her name was Jill. Jill was my savior during this race. She told me that she had been running with the 3:25 pace group, but that they had gone out too fast, and so she couldn't keep up with them. I did feel like I was holding her back, but she said she was running the pace she wanted to be running. Chatting with her was such a great distraction from how I was feeling, and my goal was just to keep moving forward with her. Mile splits. Mile 14, 7:57, 15, 8:59, 16, 8:47, 17, 9:41, stop to talk to Greg, mile 18, 8:56, 19, 8:26, mile 20, 8:22, thank you, Jill. After about 2 miles, Jill said that she needed to stop, and I told her I was starting to feel better, so I started to keep going. My legs felt much better, much more loose, and I'm guessing this was from the ibuprofen kicking in. We were also past the uphill section, and I had 2 miles with a new friend to distract me. From then on, miraculously, I did not have to stop and stretch anymore. I could run straight to the finish. Back at the halfway point, I had envisioned myself walking it in, but that's where my training came into play. Even though my legs failed me so early in the race, I was still able to keep running. Sure, I wasn't going to get the 3:10 that I wanted from my training, but it did not go to waste. It enabled me to still run strong during that final 10K. I was running faster than I had been running during the middle 20K. It is probably quite rare to have the first 10K be the fastest, the last 10K be the second fastest, and the middle 20K to be the slowest. But that is how I ran this race. It's the best I could do with the legs I had. I really perked up during these final miles, and I finally felt like I was racing the marathon. No more stopping and stretching. I did get a cramp in my foot during the 25th mile, but I ignored it and I just kept going. The crowd got bigger and bigger as I approached the finish line. It almost felt as amazing as the Boston Marathon finish line. The crowd was going wild and I felt like such a rock star. I was so proud of myself for making it there and for getting a second wind. My official finish time was 3:22:28, which honestly feels like a miracle. If you would have told me that I would run that time at the halfway point, I would not have believed you. Based on how I felt, I was thinking that I would be lucky to run under 4 hours. I ran over 10 minutes faster than my previous Indianapolis Monumental Marathon from 2017, and I qualified for Boston by over 12 minutes. This was a huge victory. Mile splits. Mile 21, 8:33, 22, 8:13, 23, 8:11, mile 24, 8:15, 25, 8:25, and 26, 8:27. I ran the last 0.41 at a pace of 7:46. Afterwards, I did not vomit, which is rare for me. Typically I did, but I don't think I was really able to run this race at full effort because of the way my legs were feeling. I actually think I set a PR for the most fuel ever consumed in a marathon. Everything went down smoothly. 5 gels, 10 Honey Stinger Chews, and 1 serving of Scratch Labs hydration. Our hotel was literally right at the finish line, so the walk took maybe 2 minutes. I met up with Greg and I was so happy to see him. His biking plan worked out perfectly. He was at the finish line taking photos too, but I did not see him in the crowd. I was eager to start relaxing, so I didn't hang out at the finish line. We went straight to the hotel room. Here are my final thoughts and key takeaways from this race. I'm not sure if I would call this a bonk or not. I don't think I hit the wall. My legs just failed me early on in the race. I kept having to stop and stretch. I guess speeding up for the final 10K means I didn't actually bonk. I just had a 13-mile rough patch in the middle of the race. I actually didn't do much walking, and my Garmin data supports this. I have only 29 seconds of walking time for the whole race and about 90 seconds worth of just idle time, which is stretching or standing still, talking to Greg. So Strava has me at 3:30:25 for moving time. And for some reason, if you stop moving, Strava stops the clock. If you look at my Strava splits, they're going to be different from what you're seeing in this video because Strava removed all of my stopping in the splits and only included the walking as moving time. The data in this video is actually correct because it is coming from my Garmin watch. This was obviously not the race I wanted. I would say this race is not what I trained for, but it actually was the race that I trained for. If I hadn't done all of those workouts, I would not have been able to run so strong on dead legs. Even after they loosened up, they were still very fatigued. You don't just train for a particular time. You train to be able to handle whatever the race throws at you. I was determined to finish strong and stay positive, and that is exactly what I did. I think this race was a win for me, even though it wasn't what I was hoping for. Nobody hopes for dead legs. As for why this happened, it could be a million different things. I'll never really know for sure. My best theory is that the Paris trip 3 weeks before the race got me out of my groove, and then I strained my calf after having a few extra days off. Not running for 13 days leading up to the race made running feel stale. Even though my fitness was still intact, my legs were shocked by the task and they didn't want to cooperate. That's my best guess. If I had to do anything differently, I might have run longer on the anti-gravity treadmill on the Wednesday before the race, and I would have done a shakeout run on Saturday. I would have spent more time foam rolling, stretching the day before. Would I have turned down the Paris trip? Maybe, but there was no way to know that the Paris trip was going to be such a disruption. I knew there was a risk of getting sick, and I went anyway. Running is a big part of my life, but it doesn't revolve around running. I was invited to speak at a marketing event, and I saw this as an honor. While I do think the Paris trip set off the chain of events that led to my race day issues, I do not regret it. My biggest takeaway is that I truly enjoyed the marathon. And it was surreal to have been recognized by so many people. Not only to have been recognized, but to have so many people tell me that my book inspired them or that they appreciate my posts. I pour a lot of my time, energy, and soul into my social media, and experiences like this show that it is really making a difference to people. A Boston qualifying time by over 12 minutes and a course PR by over 10 minutes is not too shabby given everything that happened in the 3 weeks leading up to the race. Thankfully, my soleus strain is 100% recovered, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. I can recover normally from this marathon and look forward to winter training. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this race recap.